Here's Johnny. Thank you. Well, hello there, social media family. Being of any person among yourselves, subscribers and visitors alike who are affiliated or associated with and are representing my own particular YouTube social media channel and likewise chat room comment section. How you all doing? Howdy, cowboys and cowgirls of this urban jungle, you know. But then, watch out for fellow drivers on the road, on your way to work, and on your way to school. And that is including state troopers. You don't have to drive all crazy, I mean, everybody wants to get to where they have to go. And any motorists on the roads or highways within the continental USA, United States of America, you got to be respectful of your fellow motorists and drivers and our passengers, automobiles or motor vehicles. And the life you save may be your own. And moving right along. And whereas the present social media broadcast, being as is video content, and as it will reflect that last mention, is regarded and make a reference to how a motorist or driver had unfortunately, and I would like to think that it was a drunk driver than a sober driver. Sober driver is what I meant to say. Prince of Peace continued to regulate my mind compared to Prince of Darkness. Had collided with the person of a state trooper upon an interstate highway. Lord have mercy. Can't get my words together. The devil is busy in this day and age. That much more and with his demons. Anyway, though, getting back to some of such others. And I'm sorry yes, I apologize if I cannot give you all the full Monty or can only give you the Cliff Notes version of the unfortunate tragic incident. From what I have gathered of information via that of a news report, but be thankful that I can or could possibly at least give you the general idea what had happened, from what I had gathered of a line of thought on short notice, and whereas I have yet to get further specifics or details, regardless of whether or not I were to do a second installment broadcast, social media video content of this same incident, and whereas now the surviving family members of the slain state trooper, whereas I can only imagine how they are grieving right about now for what is supposed to be a Christmas holiday season, and whereas I extend my own personal condolences to them, and this is not meant to sound and seem callous, but I would like to think or hope that it was a drunk driver, much rather than, worse yet, a sober person behind the steering wheel of a 2-ton automobile motor vehicle, then of whom should know better, regardless of whether you were speeding, going beyond the recommended speed limit upon an interstate highway, where the slain state trooper could have possibly encountered your person. Hopefully, it was a drunk or hype then a sober person behind the steering wheel of a 2-ton automobile or motor vehicle. You know, then a sober driver trying to make it to one's job, then because one does not want to risk losing it, and so one puts the pedal to the metal and goes beyond the recommended speed limit, or whereas a sober driver could possibly be, you know, a prospective future employee trying to make a job interview and does that then the same. Yes, that would be even more tragic. I mean, then because this state trooper, all he wanted to do was to, you know, make it home to his loved ones, all the same as anybody else, after a hard day's work. And so I would like to think that it was a drunk driver, much rather instead of a sober driver. And because if it was the sober driver, otherwise, worse yet, then hopefully, regardless, they have, caught up with you and placed you under arrest, And if you are a fugitive of law, hopefully you would do the right thing and turn yourself in. Because that should not have happened. This is becoming a quite regular incident of unfortunate cases of state troopers being, hit upon interstate highways by motorists or automobile drivers, You know what I'm saying? And all being because, well, I would like to think it was a drunk then, a sober person, wanting to try to make it to one's job or make it to a job interview. You know, a sober driver wanting to make it to one's job before one could possibly become late or become late again and get another write-up. Before one would have possibly become late and get a write-up, or become late again and get another write-up, or a sober driver trying to think to put the pedal to the metal to save some time to make it to a job interview. To save some time with time to spare. God forbid. So what do you all think about that? And I'm sorry about the rather compulsive physical gestures, whereas, I myself am going to have to see some kind of a dermatologist or a licensed physician of that sort of type, especially as I suspect that this here is some kind of a health issue, being of which is a foul play perpetrated against me, possibly coming from one of these here are my present neighbors from damn hell, or public nuisances of problem neighbors in a really bad neighborhood, especially the main one being of a local drug pusher who has caused me problems for the longest. As I speed dial the cases and situations of how he has attempted to make my life a living down hell for the longest. And from stalking me in the business office of the management, where it's all I'm trying to do is to think to go in there to transact the necessary business at hand with the administrative real estate representative personnel, being of which is to renew my apartment rental lease, to fill out and sign the paperwork documents necessary for me to try to think to do just that. And whereas he's following behind me and flipped the script upon himself doing so, attempting to make it seem like he's the prey of a victim and I'm the predator parasite to how at one time or another, he's, attempting to ride his bicycle or bike to simply say into my person, whereas he was just a couple of or a few inches from my physical body and rolled behind me and rolled alongside of me and didn't bother to say excuse me. So they told me right then and there that he had done that as he did on purpose. And so from there, I had dialed the emergency telephone number 911, to alert the police authorities, then the local members of law enforcement community that there's trouble in paradise, or to let the police know that I'm having problems with one of the riffraff or one who is of the rank and file of the likes of usual suspects, public enemy number ones, or the criminal elements of society. Two, at one time or another, he's sitting on a stoop outside the building, in the dead of night. And from there, he's threatening my person, mouthing off to me about how either he or somebody else he may connect with that is could be associated with him or accomplice in crime, could F me up, or extremely and or violently physically assault or attack me. And from there, I'm having to dial the emergency number 911 again for the police or for police assistance to file a police report about that one hate crime incident of a civil and human rights violation offense. To how at one time or another, he's telling me if I call the police upon him again, there's going to be trouble. So I did just that in thinking, because I felt that was a threat, as well as any of the other incidents of a criminal nature, or that being which is illegal. To how at one time or another, he's running down the sidewalk behind me as I'm trying to, become a part of ridership of a train station right across the street from the building. Thinking about paying my fare to become a passenger that's commuting wherever. And then whereas I'm having to, take a detour, change my mind about doing so for mass transit, public transportation system with all this bus and the train routes for that particular one, and much rather than instead of catching the train, whereas I had thought to catch a bus instead. And at the same time, I let the police know after that he was causing problems once again, by dialing emergency number of 911 with my cell phone. To how at one time or another, because he was running down the sidewalk and he was, regardless of whether or not he was packing heat, well, I'm pretty sure it wasn't so much of a bluff, like he's ready to put my lights out, snuff my life out, Then there was another time he's in the front entrance and edgeway of the building as I'm coming back from the hospital. So I decided to take a detour and change my mind and decide from there to enter in via one or two back doors to the building, was rather instead, and whereas I barely made it into my apartment, closed and locked my apartment door, whereas he's standing outside of it, cussing, swearing, mouthing off threats against my person, misbehaving like himself is practically, if not possibly, about to kick my apartment door in a physical way. And whereas I barely managed to get off an emergency telephone call to the police, as my phone was dying and recharging at the same time. And whereas he would go in and out of one or two back doors to the building more than the other one, and namely, most of the one next to my apartment door, although the lock mechanism is jammed and needs repairs, whereas he would prop something in between the door and the border to make sure that he could come and go as easily as he pleases, as well as he could think to do so with the other back door to the building that needs not any repairs, because there's nothing wrong with that one or with this lock mechanism. But anyway, though, in getting back to some or such other, of the original subject matter. Not that I was meaning to seem like I'm wagging the dog as in changing the subject, you know. But anyway, though, so here you have this here state trooper had gotten run over by a motorist or by a driver behind the steering wheel of a 2-ton automobile or motor vehicle, regardless of whether or not that person was a drunk driver, still all the same, it was irresponsible. You know, if you see a state trooper on the highway and whereas one is performing a duty as a public serving official, then you're supposed to slow down, you know? I mean, there's no kind of you know what I'm saying? No excuse for that, no matter how much you could try to, explain. I mean, if you was driving at a high rate of speed, going beyond the recommended speed limit, knowing full damn well that not only could you endanger the lives of other motorists or drivers, not to mention that state trooper as a member of the law enforcement community, but yourself as well. You're supposed to slow down, you know. I mean, it would be more understandable if you was a drunk driver behind the steering wheel of a large automobile or motor vehicle, you know, and because that would be of a much more reasonable or rational argument, you know, in looking at it from one point of view and another, why that mishap had occurred or why that unfortunate incident had happened. But for a driver to be a sober individual person and cause that to become the resulting developments of a slain state trooper upon an interstate highway, that is inexcusable, and you should be punished more than the drunk driver. You know what I'm saying? As I look at it from my own personal perspective or narrative, or and give my take, you know, and especially my own personal views and opinions about that rather unfortunate, tragic situation or incident, you know. And on the last note of interest, that's all I have to say about these matters. And in conclusion, I would like to say, if you haven't gotten Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, I hope that you would think to do so now while the blood is still running warm in your veins, by recognizing and realizing what He Himself had done or did upon the cross of Calvary on the hill of Golgotha, suffering at the hands of Roman soldiers upon the orders of their superiors, especially of the religious Pharisees and Sadducees. But then, nevertheless, He went to that cross of Calvary to fulfill biblical prophecy, as God had come in the form of human flesh as a baby who had grew up to become a man, and then, you know, whereas He Himself had fulfilled biblical prophecy to restore the breach between Himself as God and human flesh as a man, and between mankind made in His image, so that any of us, whoever could profess faith in Him, from there would not only acquire the only means by which any of us can or could possibly become citizens of the kingdom of heaven, and for that matter, likewise acquire the only fire insurance against the lake of fire, damn hell, regardless of race, walk of life, gender, age, etc. But then, whereas we would also become blessed in this world with deliverance to complement His salvation. And hopefully we will come or be a blessing on the others by sharing with them the gospel message of salvation of our Lord and Savior Christ as good Samaritans. And on the last note of interest, again, we out. Peace.